before you became the Buddhist monk, and what are the career that you have, before a monk?
So before I was a monk, I was a young man in Czech Republic. I worked for a cable TV company, UBC, and I was a house-to-house seller. So I would go house to house and I would explain to the people about our product, about cable TV, internet, and telephone, all provided by cable, and I would do it only to write with them the contract that they will receive the services from the company. And so that was a kind of business. You must have a business approval from the government for that. And with that, I was very successful. I also had a girlfriend and very nice life with my girlfriend. But I felt that I really want to be monk in this life. And so I left my girlfriend and became a monk.
So when did you start introduce Buddhist philosophy, and how it was introduced?
So you mean what got me interested in Buddhism in the first time?
When did you start found the philosophy of Buddhism in Czech Republic or in Asia?
Yes. I started to study Buddhist philosophy in the Catholic high school where I studied since my age of 11. And in European Catholic high schools, you don't get just the teachings of Christianity, but you learn about other religions as well. And at that time, the teacher didn't explain Buddhism in a very interesting way, but he did explain it, and we had to pass the examination. So at that time, I was not interested in Buddhist philosophy at all. It actually seemed to me very boring. The Four Noble Truths didn't seem to make any sense to me, and so I just couldn't remember them. So I would write them on the desk, and during the test I would copy them from the test and from the desk. Yeah, and then later when I was 15, I wanted to gain psychic powers. So I read books about psychic powers, and in one book they explained that the best psychic powers are attained by Buddhist monks. So I thought, okay, so I want to get psychic powers, and the best psychic powers are attained by Buddhist monks, so that means I have to become a Buddhist monk. And then from that I started to learn about Buddhism. So I was reading books about Buddhism, and I learned more and more about Buddhist philosophy, and I saw that the Buddhist teachings is very much in accordance with what I want to believe, what I want to follow. So the concept of Kamma, the concept of not self were very palatable, very acceptable to me, and so I felt that this is the way I want to live. And becoming a monk is the only thing I want to do in my life, because I want to get psychic powers.
So I heard that there is a Kamma in your conversations. So how do you believe in Kamma? So what is the meaning of Kamma?
Yeah, now Kamma just makes sense. If you want to believe that the world makes sense, then you would believe in Kamma. If you think that world is haphazard and there is no sense at all, then you don't need to believe in Kamma. Kamma simply says that whatever happens is an effect of in the case of Kamma, it's either an effect of an action of the person. In the case of Hetukala law, it means that it's a result of a different condition. So there are these two facets of the world. So one is the Kamma and one is the Hetukala. Kamma is for action. So if somebody kills, then he is killed, or he has short life, or next life he is born in hell, and later if the person is born as a human, they will have short life or they will be killed. If somebody doesn't kill and cherishes life and is a doctor and is a very conscientious doctor, of course not all doctors are conscientious, and really tries to help people to live and tries to rescue people or works in such organization or company, then of course their life will be long, or in next life they will be born in heaven, or if they are born as humans they will have long life. Then the same for stealing. If somebody is stealing, they will be poor. For me, it makes sense. If some people are angry, they will be ugly. If some people are loving, friendly, then they will be beautiful. If some people are paying respect to monks and paying respect to their parents, they will be accepted as the higher caste or higher strata of the society. If they do not pay respect to monks or to elder people, to parents, then they will be on the lower strata of the society. If some people come to monks and elder people and say, "Oh, Venerable Sir, what is good, what is wrong? What should I do for my happiness? What should not I do so that I avoid suffering?" Then such people who ask, then in the future they will be wise, which is actually very logical. If you ask, you will know. On the other hand, those who don't ask, who think, "I know everything, I don't need to ask anybody, I understand it all," then they will be stupid. So Kamma for me makes sense. But especially Kamma is very important for the society, because if the society believes in Kamma, then there is more opportunity, there is a good reason for the society to be good people. If the people do not believe in Kamma, then they think, "Okay, no problem, I will kill, and then I do not need to care, I just need to kill this person, they're not good for me," so they just kill. Or, "I need to steal, my family is poor, so I will steal." If you believe in Kamma, you will know that if your family is poor and you steal, then you will be even poorer, which unfortunately even the Buddhists in poor Buddhist countries don't understand. So they think my family is poor, so I have to go to steal. Then they go to monastery, they steal things, and then they are even poorer. And because the family supports them in stealing, then the family whole is even poorer. So that's very bad. Instead, if they tried to follow not stealing even in the poorest times, then that would be exactly what would solve their problem of poverty throughout hundreds and hundreds of lives in the cycle. It also makes more sense if you understand the rebirth. So if we talk about rebirth, previous life and future life, then Kamma is a very powerful tool to understand the world, how it works. So if you understand that there was a previous life, then the Kamma is the very basic feature of making sense. So so last life I killed somebody, so this life I have short. Last life I was generous, so this life I'm wealthy. So in the same way, this life, if I kill somebody, next life I will be born in hell, or I will have short life. If this life I steal, then next life I will be poor. But Kamma can give result in 3 different periods, right? Right after the act, or during the life, or in the next life. So this is very important to know. So some people, when they are generous, they think they immediately must be wealthy. But that's not true. It's possible that they will be wealthy later in their life. It's possible they will be wealthy next life. some people do some action, some action of generosity or killing, and immediately it returns to them. Immediately they have to suffer that. So that depends on the different consequences, on the power of the other actions of the person. But next life makes much more sense if we talk about Kamma, because if there is Kamma, if the law of Kamma has to be really logical, if it really has to make sense, then there must be a next life to repay the things that couldn't be repaid in this life. So that way next life is immensely important for us to understand Kamma. And of course, to make the reality even more interesting, to see how the reality is even more interesting, the concept of different levels of birth is very important to accept. So the fact that somebody can be born in hell is very important to believe if you want to distinguish a person who kills their father, mother, who are mass murderers, who are robbers, to distinguish them from somebody else who just killed a mosquito, or who just hurt their friend because they didn't want to pay back the debt, right? So there must be some distinguishment. And so all of these things are bad, and they will turn into a lot of suffering, but some things would not be sufficiently repaid in the human life. So there must be hell where the consequence is repaid sufficiently. So the person who killed their parents or who is a mass murderer, then of course it would not be sufficient for them to suffer in a human life. The birth in hell would sufficiently repay, then of course it would not be sufficient for them to suffer in a human life. The birth in hell would sufficiently repay what they did, because the action is much more heinous, much more serious than killing a little animal, which is also bad, but that could be repaid in a human life. You know what I mean?
So, can people prove is really exist about the past lives or the previous life? Can we prove, or is there any way to find out if it's real?
Yes, there is a lot of ways to find out, because many people remember their past lives, and obviously what they remember is wrong. They just think whatever they want to know, whatever they want to think, or maybe some, as Muslims would say, some devils would come and they would whisper that to their ears, because in Islam they don't believe in previous life, they believe in future but not in a previous life. So the problem here is quite serious. Okay, so somebody knows what was their previous life, so then isn't it just what they thought about, what they made up? And of course there are many people who are so much interested in the truth, in the veracity of those statements. So they will take that what these people say, and oftentimes these people remember where they lived and what was their name and who was their parents and brothers and friends and where is their home. They just remember it all. So then these researchers just go to that place and they just find out that yes, there is the place, there are those parents, there are the friends, and that's one thing. But then there are a lot of other facets to this aspect of rebirth, which are so interesting. And that is when you get the animals. So there are cases with animals. When you get an animal at home, it's the same species, you know, the same breed, the same appearance, everything is same, and you love him, you know, so much. And then you get another animal of the same species, same breed, same appearance, but you just cannot stand it. How come? And oftentimes some people take their pet, you know, so endearingly, you know. They would even sleep with the pet, you know, in the same bed because they just love the pet. They have no idea why, but they just love the pets. You know? And there are cases when you have animals coming to your home, especially in Asia, this is so common because in West, of course, animals are kept away. But in Asia, oftentimes you get some animals, they come to your home and they just want to be in your home. And you just take them, you put them to other home or take them kilometers away, and they somehow find a way back home. So there is a very funny story from our Buddhist scriptures. When a Brahmin, you know, in India they have the castes, and Brahmins are the highest caste. And a Brahmin, when he saw the Buddha, he would say, Bho Gautama, which means like, hey you Gautama, you know, hey you ascetic. And he didn't like the Buddha, and he didn't believe in Kamma, he didn't believe in rebirth, you know, and because of this wrong view, he was born as a dog. And of course you think this is a fairy tale, who cares, this is, anybody can write that. But it has a continuing. How does it continue? The Buddha came to that house where was the dog. And when the Buddha came to that house, the dog was barking at the Buddha. So the Buddha said, oh, you Brahmin Daudeya, even as a human, you were shouting at me, now as a dog you are barking at me. Now, immediately that dog put down its tail, put down its head, and silently ran back to its sleeping place in the home. Then of course the family was angry. How come that the Buddha will call our dear dog our father? Our father is certainly born among the gods. So the Buddha left, and the son of the Brahmin came to the Buddha, and he thought, okay, fine. Now I will ask the Buddha, why did he ridicule our father, speaking to our dog as if it was our father? And so he came to the Buddha and said, oh Buddha, can you prove me that the dog is our father? Now you need to understand that the son of his father, of course, also didn't believe in Kamma, he also didn't believe in rebirth. So he was so much interested in how come that rebirth would be true, how come that Kamma would be true. He absolutely didn't believe the Buddha. So the Buddha said, okay, I can prove it to you. Come home, go home, and when you come home, feed your dog very well. Bathe your dog very well. When it's well fed, well bathed, put it to sleep. And as it's just coming to be asleep, whisper into its ear, dear father, show me your hidden treasure. Of course, in the previous life, the Brahmin, and Brahmins usually, was very rich. But for some reason he didn't show where was his piled wealth to the rest of the family. So nobody knew where was that much money that the Brahmin collected throughout his life. So this was very interesting, and the son of the Brahmin thought, oh, this is great. Now if the Buddha says that if what the Buddha says is true, then I will get the wealth of my father. If what the Buddha says is not true, then I will spread all around the village, all around the city, that the Buddha is a liar. So it's a win-win strategy. So he was so happy. He went home, he fed the dog, he bathed the dog, and he put the dog to sleep. And just as the dog was coming to fall asleep, he whispered into the ear of the dog, dear father, show me where is your hidden treasure. Then the dog stood out. Slowly it came to the yard of the house, and and it dug into the ground gradually, a little bit, with its claws, whatever, with its feet. And it dug in 4 different places. So the son of the Brahmin Dodaya, he thought, okay, so these must be the places where my father kept his treasure. So he dug those places and he found the treasure of his father, so much of wealth. So here you see that we can check the previous birth, not only through humans who remember it, but also through animals who remember it. Just like humans, not all animals, not all humans remember their previous life. In the same way, not all animals remember their previous life. So this way, you can see that to check this, you really must know the world well. You really must be acquainted with a lot of humans, with a lot of animals, to check it and to see how it works. But there are so many reports from humans of their previous lives, and they were checked by rigorous scientific tests, whether this is really true, whether they couldn't know it from somebody else. Of course you will suspect, certainly they heard about that person from somewhere, so they just made up the story that that was their past life. No, sorry, these are like 3 years old children or 5 years old children. How come they would know about somebody in a different country where they never visited? How come they would know the name of the person, the name of the parents, the name of the friends, and what they did there? There are cases of children who tell to their parents, "Oh, my parents, you are not my parents. I remember where are my parents. You are not my parents." Imagine children telling this to their own parents, and then gradually leading their new parents to the place where are the old parents. And then when they see their old parents, they say, "Oh, my dear parents, you are my parents." And then they hug them and love them, and they don't want to go. So that